Roll Tide, everybody. Welcome to Cover Crimson. We're going to talk Alabama coaches today. Keelon Russell, the 5-star plus quarterback that's in Tuscaloosa. Some comments about Ryan Grubb and more. Thanks for hanging out with us. Brought to you by MyBookie, mybookie.ag. Use that promo code NEXTROUND to double your initial deposit. All right, let's get this party started. Roll Tide, everybody. He's Clint Lamb. I'm Mick Gillispie. Thanks for hanging out with us right after the next round, talking to you guys live here on our channel. So thumbs up. That's a way of saying Roll Tide. All right, Clint, we were excited about getting Ryan Grubb, and we kind of had a feeling we knew what the coaching staff was going to look like. Lost a coach on the defensive side of the football, and we got now a picture of what the new staff's going to do and what they're going to look like. Not much difference, but a couple.
Yeah, obviously you added Jason Jones as an assistant defensive backs coach. That happened, earlier, I guess, about the middle of last month. And so you've got Mo Linguist has somebody to kind of help him out in the secondary. You did add Chuck Morrell as kind of your official off-ball linebackers coach. He had been helping with that position last year, but it was more of like wasn't an official label or title. So now he's going to be probably one of those 11 off-campus recruiters, as they like to say. So that's been, somewhat of a change as far as official labels. But then you bring in Ryan Grubb. That's been the major talking point, really, ever since it happened, or really ever since he got fired from Seattle. Like a lot of Alabama fans were wondering what was going to happen with the play calling. Would a reunion be possible? That ended up happening. But then also now, we were wondering what was going to happen when Nick Sheridan. We knew he was going to stay on staff. We knew Jamarcus Shepard was going to stay on staff. And it was just a matter of, okay, for Sheridan, now that he's not going to be the offensive coordinator and you have Brian Ellis coaching the tight ends, which is the position that he was coaching before, what's his role going to look like? Does he move to tight ends and Brian Ellis moves to another position? I thought that was a possibility. But really what they've done is just replace what I was thinking as far as Brian Ellis with Nick Sheridan, meaning he's going to be the quarterback's coach, but, and we don't know if he's going to continue to have a co-offensive coordinator label, but he's at this point really just losing that play calling responsibilities.
So, and a lot of people think or speculated that maybe for Sheridan, it would have been better to leave and take another job. See, I don't think so.
I don't either.
I look at this as, hey, you worked with this crew before. I mean, this is your crew. And being a team player means sometimes you got to switch responsibilities and do something that you're good at. He's not getting a pay cut. They're not changing his title technically, other than now you got somebody that's over you. But these guys have a great working relationship, and that's the one thing you hear about Coach DeBoer constantly is that people love working with him.
Well, and I mean, was he going to go out and get an offensive coordinator job somewhere else? I mean, just with his limited experience, I mean, obviously this year would have been beneficial in the eyes of other programs, but he probably would have got a position coaching job elsewhere too. I don't know that for certain, but that's what it would feel like. And we don't know what's going to happen with Ryan Grubb after a year or after 2 years or what that ends up looking like. So it's at this point, could you have worked your way back into being an offensive coordinator at a place like Alabama within the next few years? And if your answer to yourself was no on that, then you might have that possibility again sometime in the future. So why would you not just go ahead and stick around, continue to be somewhere where you're comfortable? There's plenty of talent. If you really like that quarterback room, I mean, you got a couple of 5-stars, including the highest rated recruit in Alabama football history. Yeah. You got Austin Mack, who the coaching staff really likes. And it's like, if that position does well, you will get, at least a certain percentage of credit for that. So, I mean, I think it was probably in his best interest to stick around.
Yeah, I agree. Jim says that Sheridan was Keelon's main recruiter. Those relationships are important. Yeah, and he's a quarterback coach, right? And it's the most important coaching position on a football team these days, because that is definitely a job that's going to lead you to being an offensive coordinator again. The experience is only going to help you. The opportunity kind of presented itself because of Grubb going to the NFL. which I'm sure that Grubb and Scott Huff probably look back now and go, man, we should have just gone to Alabama in the first place. But I still think that being in the NFL, being around the NFL game, coaching in the NFL gives you perspective that's going to help you too, taking over this new responsibility. Guys, as you hang out, please give us a thumbs up. That's a way of saying Roll Tide. We try to build the live show here. And thank you guys so much as we talk Alabama football. But yeah, Clint, I mean, I think there's only positives that come out of this. And I feel like this was something that Nick Saban did a lot. Like if he could get someone that he felt like was a position coach or a coordinator upgrade, he did it constantly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a couple of things to look at here. Number one, I think Kalen DeBoer and company, they're kind of on the forefront of a lot of this. Like Nick Saban was typically pretty good at heading some of this stuff off and knowing where the game was heading and how he could take advantage of new things that were developing. Well, when it comes to like your two coordinators, like they do have a lot on their plate, like trying to figure out how they're going to bring all of this stuff together and manage it as a whole. That's more difficult in my opinion, and it comes with a lot more pressure than being a position coach. And so with that responsibility, we'd already seen him, or I think it was DeBoer, decide that Kane Womack wasn't going to be required to kind of go out on the recruiting trail and be one of those 11 off-campus recruiters. I think that's probably going to be the same way with Ryan Grubb. Like he was in the NFL. Maybe one of the desirable parts about going to the NFL was the fact that he wasn't going to have to go out there and pound pavement and do all the recruiting, off-campus recruiting and all that stuff. And so maybe one of the benefits of the way that things are set up now, they might not put those responsibilities on him, and he'll be the exact same as Womack, which will only give them more time to focus on the actual product that you're getting, whether it be in the spring, summer, fall camp, once Saturdays roll around in the fall. And what I like about it is like, Ryan Grubb has help, and that help comes by way of Kalen DeBoer, who's like obviously he's been a play caller. He's, the head coach. He's going to get help as far as offensive game planning on that front. He's going to get help from Nick Sheridan, the quarterback's coach, as far as the game planning and all that stuff. Like there's going to be a brain in that room. Not only that, but like Brian Ellis, now that Nick Sheridan is not focused or doesn't have the responsibilities of the entire offense, which, like I said, it's a lot more pressure, it's a lot more responsibility. He might have time to maybe help out Brian Ellis and work with the tight ends a little bit and give him some pointers and look at some things. So, like, I just think there's a lot of flexibility within this Alabama staff, and I think that's going to create a really nice, sound product on Saturdays this fall.
What do you know about Jason Jones? I know he played football at Alabama and he's been coaching. And then remind me who left to open up that spot for him, because when he came in, that spot wasn't available, but they knew it was going to be available.
Colin Hitchler, he was the guy. Yeah, he ended up getting let go. And Jason Jones was brought in to replace him. And I don't think he's going to be one of those 11 off-campus recruiters either. He's technically being labeled as an assistant defensive backs coach. So Mo Linguist is going to be coaching, instead of just the cornerbacks, he's going to be coaching the entire secondary. And Jason Jones is going to help him, because you did have two guys doing that. Now you'll just have one. But yet again, this is them taking advantage of the fact that you now have more opportunities or more coaches that can do the on the field, on hand coaching and stuff in practice and really, on Saturdays as well. And so they're taking full advantage of that. And he's a guy, like, he played at Alabama. I think he was there in the late 90s, early 2000s. And then he got his master's degree in like the mid 2000s, like 2005 or 2006. But he started his coaching career at Alabama as a GA. He's been coaching for 20 plus years now. I mean, he was, I know at one point he was like the cornerbacks coach at North Carolina. He was the safeties coach before that at Indiana. He was at FAU as the cornerbacks coach. He was the co-offensive coordinator. And I think he had a specialized look at the defensive backs from like 2013 to 2018. That was actually during the time of Dave Womack, who was Kane's father, when he was at Ole Miss as the defensive coordinator. So those two guys worked together. So there's familiarity on that front. And so, like, he's got SEC experience. He's got secondary experience. He's not probably going to be one of those on-field or off-campus recruiters. So I think it's a great ad, and I think they're doing a good job of taking advantage of some of these new rules.
Yeah, no doubt. Like, subscribe, thumbs up, guys. Cover Crimson live. We plan this right after the next round. So some of you guys probably watching the next round, and then swing over here and hang out with us. But yeah, we love this coaching staff too. And one of the things, and I want to talk some Keelon Russell, but one of the things that I've noticed, it's year, going into year 2 now for for Coach DeBoer, is that it's not the mass exodus that Coach Saban dealt with towards the middle and end of his career. When Kirby Smart left, that signaled every time we got to this point, the coaches were out there basically trying to grease the wheel. I mean, it was so hard for him to keep a coaching staff, and I know he got frustrated with it, and I don't blame him. There was absolutely no loyalty, but he also got the best coaches name-wise that were available. Right. So, it was a kind of a two-edged sword, but we're not seeing that with this coaching staff. As a matter of fact, we're seeing guys that didn't come going, well, crap, I need to go back and be with this group. Right. And I'm sure Scott Huff's somewhere going, man, I might be an analyst at Alabama because it didn't work out for us in the NFL.
Well, yeah. And I think that just the differences in coaching between Nick Saban and Keelon DeBoer, everybody wanted to be a part of Nick Saban's coaching clinic. What do they call it? The School of Redemption, or what? I forget the exact phrasing, but as far as rebuilding coaches' careers, like, everybody wanted to be a part of that. But how many people were really wired to be a part of that for a long period of time? Like, there are a lot of demands. He's kind of, he was, especially early in his career, and I would say, a huge chunk of his career, he was kind of difficult to work for, or difficult to work under.
Oh, yeah.
And so, like, the way that Keelon DeBoer coaches or approaches things, it's more of something where, other coaches are having fun. They're enjoying themselves. The day-to-day demands aren't as strenuous, or it isn't as high pressure. Now, some people might criticize that and say that's a bad thing. From a continuity perspective, I just think it's more enjoyable. So I think that's why, you've seen guys kind of follow Keelon DeBoer around, and they've had success kind of everywhere they've been. They don't mind reuniting. They don't mind sticking around for a while. And I think that can be a huge benefit to this entire process.
Yeah, I can remember when Coach Saban, probably about, 5 years before he retired, hearing from some coaches that it was really tough on their families because of the amount of time that it was you coached with him, because no one was going to beat him there. No one was going to leave or, leave. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's setting example. A guy busted it and everybody else, but then you got kids and a family, you're younger, you got different priorities, and maybe that led to some coaches leaving too, not necessarily that they were greasing the wheel. So I probably should say that as well. But Coach DeBoer, kind of an opposite type guy, not saying he doesn't work hard, but I think he pays attention to that aspect of things. But if you go 9-4 at Alabama, you're not going to be at Alabama very long. Right. So Saban worked harder than everybody else, and he won more than anybody else, So we'll see if Keelon DeBoer is able to have a better second year, and I certainly hope so, because I really like him. Now, if he does have a successful career at Alabama, a lot of us feel like eventually it's going to be Keelon Russell as the quarterback, right? And this guy's, what are they saying? Our friends at On 3, they call him like a 5-star plus now, like it's not enough to be a 5-star. You're a 5-star plus,
Why can't we just go 6-star?
That would ruin everything.
Yeah, that's exactly why they do it. It's just a way to kind of portray that a guy is, universally viewed as a 5-star. Like, some people will kind of take advantage of that, and they'll, if you're someone in our position, if we really wanted to, we can call a bunch of different guys 5-stars. We can use rivals sometimes and say, hey, this guy's a 5-star when he's viewed that way by rivals. Maybe it's 24/7 Sports, and we refer to him as a 5-star. And if anybody presses us on it, we can say, hey, that's what we're doing. We're talking about the 24/7. Like, we have that flexibility, but 5-star plus is kind of an announcement to the world. This guy is viewed as a universal 5-star. Everybody's got him listed that way, and I like that. I think that was a good addition to, how recruits are viewed. But just the praise that he had for Ryan Grubb, Mick, I thought it was pretty special. Just him talking about the development of Michael Penix Jr. And all that stuff. If you want me to, I can read the quotes.
Yeah, if you can, if you want. But I mean, it felt to me, it just, to paraphrase, is that he's like, look, I saw what this guy does, and I think I'm going to fit in well, and I can't wait to play. I've said this many times on here. I was a Michael Penix fan when he was at Indiana. We pick games every week during college football, and you had to pay attention to Indiana because they were covering a lot of spreads. And you're going, okay, what's going on here? And you realize something special was happening because Indiana had never really been good at football before. And then, obviously they made the college football playoff this year. But, when Penix was there and DeBoer was there, they weren't known for any of that stuff, And then by the time Penix got to Washington, he was one of the best passing quarterbacks in college football. Now he's with the Falcons, but DeBoer feels like Keelon Russell has a lot of the same traits that Michael Penix had, except he's not a 3-star they found in Florida. I mean, this is a guy that is a 5-star plus, so maybe he can accomplish some of that same stuff faster.
That's exactly right. And the reason that I kind of wanted to, at least, I'll go ahead and read the entire quote. It's a little bit long, but I think it's just to give everybody a full picture of what he said. He said, as a quarterback, you've got to go watch his offensive coordinator skills and everything. I did my research and everything, making sure that this guy is the man that I've been hearing about. Man, when I tell you what he did with Michael Penix Jr., it's legendary. I'm excited. I kid you not. I'm excited. The offense is fixing to turn up this year. We're fixing to be great. And this is where I think it's kind of important. The development from Michael Penix was crazy. The dude grew. I can tell you that. He grew. With Grubb, I can tell you he's going to throw the ball. He's going to run the ball. He's going to attack every weakness in their defense. He's going to do everything to hurt your feelings. We want to score 70. He's going to put up 70. He's not scared to throw the football. He's not scared to run the football. He's not scared to do read options with the quarterbacks or anything like that. He's going to do everything that ties into winning a football game, and I'm excited to see him operate me and the other quarterbacks. He's not scared to throw. He's not scared to run. He's not scared to do read options. So like this entire combination with Ryan Grubb is he has a great feel for understanding the offense that Kalen DeBoer wants to run. He has a great feel of understanding opponent weaknesses and doing a variety of things. He throws a lot of different things at defense. That's what makes the offense, really so difficult to defend. Like as a pass rush, if you're a defender, the way that they throw a variety of different looks as far as the motions that they use, and they can do a certain motion, they can do a certain formation. They're going to run a ton of different things, kind of off the same looks, and it makes you play very timid as a defender. And really, that's all three levels. But like the pass rush has to slow down. They get you running east-west a lot, but also they're attacking north-south. Like it's a great combination, and Keelon Russell sees the possibilities and how he can fit into that, especially with his like the fact that he is such an advanced passer, or he has that upside and he has the mobility with his legs. There's really nothing that you would ask him to do in this offense that he wouldn't be able to do. And so he understands the possibilities, and I think that's a winning combination.
Good to see Nacho hanging out with us today. Hopefully he's got his luchador mask on. And Brian, you're exactly right, man. There's 111 of us hanging here talking college football, and we got 29 likes. Let's fix that, man. Roll Tide or whatever college football team you pull for, man. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us, and it helps our algorithm. We're on here trying to do this thing. The bottom line is this, is that without you guys, YouTube is very difficult to stay on. So thank you for the support. And thank you, Brian, for reminding everybody that it does matter when you interact, whether it's message or thumbs up and all that stuff. And then share with your Alabama friends too. Yeah, I'm excited about Keelon Russell, man. The guy brings in a ton of confidence. And we've seen this before, but what I like is that he's just kind of like a Muhammad Ali type guy. Like he's going to go out there and tell you, hey, this is what my goal is. I know I'm going to be able to do this. And I feel like we need that right now. It's good to have your leader being someone that's coming in and wants to win a championship and isn't afraid to talk about it. When I see Nate Oats and he's like, look, we're glad we're number one. And they are number one, by the way. They're just number one in one poll and number two in the other, which is really, really amazing. And we need to kind of touch on that before we get out of here, Clint. But 1 versus 1, but trap game tonight. Anyway, I love the fact that Keelon Russell kind of brings in that confidence. I think that Alabama certainly needs it, but it's still going to take some time for him to sit back and learn. And I think a lot of people on here worry that, hey, if he doesn't get to play, is he going to transfer?
And I think you're good in 2025, regardless of what happens, because I do think now if Ty Simpson, this is the one scenario that I've kind of shared with people that I would say there would be reason for concern, and that's if Ty Simpson wins the starting job. He does well enough to remain the starting quarterback, but not well enough to move on to the NFL, and it looks like it's going to be a multi-year thing. That's where you should probably be concerned. Maybe if Austin Mack wins the starting job, that's another scenario where it's like, okay, probably going to be a multi-year guy. He's technically going into year 3, so if he had some just outstanding year, he could technically go, but he reclassified and he enrolled early, so he would probably need to stick around for another year if he won the job. So, like, those are some scenarios where you would maybe need to be concerned, but I think Keelon understands that it's not going to be just handed to him, and he has some work that he has to do. Like, it is kind of it can be simplistic, more simplistic than you would think from an offensive perspective. It's very complex when you're looking at it from a defensive perspective, but when you understand, everything that you're doing, it's really not overly complicated. But there is nuances to it that you've got to know, you've got to be comfortable and confident in. And from a body perspective, I just think he needs to continue to kind of get a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger, be able to kind of take the beating in the SEC. So that's really where it comes in for me the most, is just where is he going to be at mentally? There's no questions of if he can get there. It's how quickly does he get there? And then from a body perspective, what can you do over these next, 6 months or so from a physical standpoint to kind of prepare yourself in case you do end up being the starter, whether it be in week 1 or at some point during the season. I really do think that he's wired the right way. I think he's a very competitive guy. He's borderline cocky, but I think it's just, to me, he's on the right side of that where it's more confident than cocky. But I think that can be kind of infectious because you've seen him not play so great at times on tape. It doesn't seem to affect him, and that is a huge thing. I think that's probably been one of Ty Simpson's biggest Achilles heels up to this point. I think he's gotten better with that. But it's just learning to overcome the mistakes and just moving on and saying there's nothing I can do about what just happened. Let's get better moving forward. But, Keelon Russell seems to be wired that way, and I think that's one of the many things that makes him a special quarterback prospect.
Love the roll call here from Fred. He says, hey, Clint and Mick, listening from, hey, hon, I'm out in Gwen Burnie, Maryland.
Is that up near your
my old neck of the woods? I know Glen Burnie. I know you, Glen Burnie. Dundalk. Yeah, good to have you on, Fred. Thank you. And then I don't know what the Kansas accent sounds like, but Roll Tide from Kansas, Brian, thank you. And all of you guys for hanging out with us. Like, subscribe, thumbs up here to the channel. And don't forget, Clint is killing it at covercrimson.com, the message board. That's where we hang out on a daily basis. We were talking about the Super Bowl yesterday and Jalen Hurts Nike video, and I loved it. And Smitty winning a Super Bowl ring. And, I said, we talked about the coaching changes a little bit on there, Clint. I feel like Coach Sheridan's going to be all right. He's still making the same amount of money and he's got less work to do. So
yeah,
a lot less pressure. Not everybody's going to be blaming him when things go wrong. But Roll Tide, all you guys.
Over on the message board yesterday, I kind of did a position breakdown of the running backs and kind of just where it stands. I shared the 2024 snap counts, and then I talked about departures and new arrivals, and I talked about where everybody fits in. And I'm going to be doing that. I'm going to continue to be doing that. I've already started it for today on another position. I won't reveal what that is yet, but I won't be doing one every weekday over the next 2 weeks. Got it broken down into 10 position groups. That's already been a lot of fun. It'll continue to be fun, and I think the conversations will get really good surrounding those topics. But also, I have put together a full 59-man roster ranking going into the spring. Didn't include the freshmen because we haven't seen any of the freshmen yet. I thought about doing it. I actually do have a ranking with those guys included, but I'm like, we haven't seen none of these guys in any practices or nothing. Like, I'll just go ahead and take them out. We'll do it post spring when we know a little bit more. But I'm going to be doing like 4 to 5 players a day where I'm going to be just talking about them and where they're ranked. And it will be a great way for not only the position breakdowns where you can kind of get a position overview, but also from an individual player perspective. I'll be touching on every single scholarship player and ranking them. You might agree with some of the rankings, you might not agree with some others, but it will also tell you one of the things I love about that sort of thing is you'll kind of notice, okay, up there near the top, like there's 3 defensive backs, like the secondary is in a really good spot when you look at it from that perspective, or the offensive line's got 3 of the top 10 play. I'm not saying that's the case. I'm speaking hypotheticals, but 3 of the top 10 players, in Clint's rankings are offensive linemen. Like that's a really good sign. So it's like you can gather different things from that. And I think that's really interesting. So definitely be on the lookout for that.
Uncle Charles, and give the guy the beans, Clint. Give the guy the beans. One of the anecdotes that Uncle Charles shared with us on our post-game show this year. Good to see you, man. It's not a party until you show up, Uncle Charles. So if there was a guy I wish I could do a show with that was part of our, our crew, it'd be Uncle Charles. Can you imagine that show, Clint? Not to replace you, Clint, to add a third man to the team.
Yeah. Hey, Uncle Charles. I mean, there's tons. I mean, Brandon would be Brandon. One. I mean, there are just we need to do this. We need to start figuring out how we can do it safely. We got to, the first person might ruin it for everybody. If you get on here and say some nonsense and get us in trouble, we might have to pre-record some of these so no one gets too crazy. But we need to bring on some of the people who listen and just kind of, 10, 15 minutes, get to know them a little bit, maybe get their thoughts on a couple of things. And because this is all of our channel. Like this isn't just us. We're just the kind of the mouthpieces for it, but we want to be everybody to be involved, and the chat's great. I mean, hop in here with us and talk a little bit too.
Yep. All right. We're going to talk about this basketball game tonight. You guys better stick with us here. Thumbs up for the Bama basketball team. They are number 1. And it's the first time that the SEC is going to have a 1 versus 2 matchup in college basketball. Think about that. I mean, not just like a 1 versus 2 Kentucky versus somebody. I mean, this is Alabama and Auburn. Both teams are number 1 and both teams are number 2. Auburn 1 in the AP, Bama 2 in the AP. Bama 1 in the coaches, Auburn 2 in the coaches. Saturday game day is going to be in Tuscaloosa. This is just a monumental accomplishment for both of these programs. It's really crazy to think about it. When I got to Alabama, I remember going to basketball games and no one cared. And they were terrible or bad or in the middle, not a legitimate national championship threat team. But tonight is one of the biggest trap games that Nate Oats is going to have to deal with. They're in Texas. It's late. Everybody's talking about Saturday, but tonight you got to play this game.
You do. And what I'll say is we'll learn a lot about both of these teams because everybody's already moving ahead to Saturday. And just 1 versus 2, regardless which way you look at it, and just how epic that's going to be. And I mean, those rankings don't change until, next week. So it doesn't matter if one of them loses. They'll still be ranked number 1 versus number 2 come Saturday. And just from a, where's your mind at? I think that's really big because, I mean, Vanderbilt, where are they at? Kind of middle of the pack. Texas, kind of the same thing. So like neither one of these 2 teams are like they can both be dangerous. They can both beat you. Vanderbilt beat Tennessee earlier this season, but it's games that probably, in the end, Alabama and Auburn should both win. But you gotta, where are you at mentally? And just I think that if you can get focused on this game and save the next game for the next game, I think that will say a lot about whether it be Alabama or Auburn. This will be something that it will be worth talking about probably come tomorrow.
Yeah, the SEC is so tough. And playing at Texas isn't even part of this gauntlet that really starts when they play Saturday against Auburn because the rest of the teams are all ranked. And you got to play Tennessee. You got to play Florida. You got to play Kentucky again. I mean, you got to play Auburn again. I mean, this is the toughest SEC that I've ever seen. And to think that Bama is right at the top of it, the toughest year ever, really is. It really is something, and especially when you have Kentucky in your league. But this Bama team is, they're worth talking about. They're pretty deep. But Nate Oats was not happy with the way that they had the big lead at Arkansas. And then all of a sudden Arkansas scored like 12 unanswered points to make it a game. And he was talking about this, Clint. He's like, look, we're not playing the scoreboard. We're playing the opponent that we're playing, right? Basically, like, I don't care what the scoreboard says. You have to keep driving to win. And he knows that. That's how you win championships. You got to knock those teams out, because in basketball, it can slip away, So
it did almost slip away.
Right. And this is almost like exactly that same type of thing. Texas, they're like, hey, we got the number one team in town. They're going to be fired up. They beat Texas A&M and they were down big. And for Alabama, it's going in there and bringing the intensity and figuring out a way to lock out Saturday and focus on what they got to do right here. One of you guys asked why the game's 3-0 on Saturday. It's because they had a predetermined time on that, I think. So the TV networks have, like, some of these games are predetermined. I wish today's game was earlier. I mean, it's 8 o'clock seems late to me.
Yeah, I go to bed at 8:30 typically.
Yeah, Clint's in sleep. I'll be in bed too watching. But I do think and 5 Adam, I think that Nate Oats is the best coach in college basketball. And honestly,
what are the chances?
I know. And I'm really surprised that he is stuck with Alabama, just because he there's anybody would hire him, but he loves Tuscaloosa. And I keep hearing that from people, hey man, the guy loves Alabama. And so that's really cool. I mean, he fits in so well too.
He does. Yeah. I mean, in just what are the chances, that you've had kind of the run with the college football coaches with Bear Bryant and Nick Saban. And I'm not saying that necessarily that Nate Oats is going to go down as one of the all-time greats in college basketball, but it's possible. It's not a ridiculous statement if he keeps doing what he's doing. I think at this point, the way he constructs the roster, the depth and the way that he kind of constructs the schedule, where it really challenges the team and makes them better, where they're kind of ready to rock and roll come March. I mean, you got to think at some point, we're no longer talking about Final Fours. Final Fours are great. I mean, in college basketball, that's kind of viewed as, national championships almost. But really, I think that with the way that he's operating things, I think you can go beyond the Final Four and you can really press for a national championship. And just considering, I mean, Alabama's always had a good program, but he's taken it to new heights. And, this Saturday is going to be a reward for both what Bruce Pearl and Nate Oats have built respectively, because these types of games, they don't come around too often.
When I do Elephant in the Room with Coker, which we're scheduled for a show today, he always talks about how much he likes Bruce Pearl.
I respect him. Yeah.
I think, it's like basketball is not football. It's just different. It really does help to have them good and you good. There's enough players, you want to beat them, but look at Kentucky. They used to be the epicenter of basketball. One program, Louisville, got bad. Then all of a sudden, Kentucky kind of started to drip off, and they're better, but they're not elite anymore. It's almost like you got to have that measuring stick. And for a while, it was like Auburn here and we're here, and now we're head to head. And it's like, to think that I don't believe there's ever been a 1-2 Alabama-Auburn football game.
Yeah. I mean,
think about that.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I mean, it's not like Alabama goes to the Final Four last year. Everybody knew Alabama was going to have one of the best teams in the country this year with the way that the roster looked. I don't know if anybody had Auburn being this good. Like, a lot of people were projecting them to be really good, but it's like, I think Alabama's success really elevated Auburn, this year, like their play is like this standard, and in football, they tried it. They were never going to match up to Alabama's history on the gridiron or the coach that they had. Nobody was ever going to come close. They did the best they could. But in basketball, it's really created a really interesting dynamic where it's like, I mean, I'm not saying that they're the new, like, North Carolina Duke, but it's kind of like they're two of their premier programs in college basketball right now. They're playing each other a couple of times a year. They might play again in the SEC tournament. Like, this is and it's a very heated rivalry. Like, the fan bases are certainly getting into it. It's just made for such a great, like, football off season. Like, this is not just, you no longer view it as like it's good that they're good enough to get us through the offseason. It's like they're their own standalone product that is really fun to watch. And it's something that, like, I just think that the growing fan bases for both teams, it's made things a lot of fun.
YouTube user, love the midday live. Great listening while I'm driving. Hey man, give me a horn. Wonder if you're a trucker. A lot of truckers. And look, Nacho says he'll help whenever we need him. And Uncle Charles is down too, man. So maybe this is something that's brewing here. The fan show, which I would love. I'd be a fan of the fan show. Just hanging out with you guys.
I would too. That'd be probably my favorite show.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's one of the things about doing the post-game show. It's so much fun. Is that we get to talk to everybody. I'm looking forward to tonight's game, and then Saturday really is the culmination of a lot of hard work by both Auburn and Alabama, and I hope we beat them. I hope we play our best game. Oh look, Shane says roll tide from the construction site. Get the hard hat on. Hey, I had I was telling this story. My girlfriend in high school's dad owned a construction company, and so I got to get out of school early, like to get to go work, right? It was like that work release. You remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Nothing motivated me to go to college like being out there.
Just the hard work.
I was cold. They're either really cold or really hot. Some of the people were cool. Some guys were terrible. Like you go get like, hey, go get a 2x4. And it's like, oh, I needed a 12-footer, not an 8-footer. It was like just constant stuff, man. So hopefully, Shane, you're the foreman out there and not the grunt like
I'll say this. Number one, everybody I've met in construction that I can think of off the top of my head have always been awesome. Hardest working people I know.
Yeah, right.
Like it's just one of those jobs where if you tell me you do that, it immediately tells me something about you. Because I don't think that I'd have the mental fortitude to be able to do that.
Well, and like they probably thought Shane's got me. Yeah, work release, man. So her dad owned it, but he was never there, right? But her brother managed it, and they probably thought like this guy's gonna, and I didn't, like marry their daughter, but they were probably like just,
Were you a terrible worker there?
I don't know if I was terrible, but it just wasn't my forte. Okay.
Yeah.
So like by the middle of that last semester, I was doing a lot more of my homework. So.
Yeah.
Because I could be doing that still to this day. But you guys wouldn't be talking to me on here. So, but yeah, tough.
Shane, we'd love to get you on too. For an episode. I think that would be fun. I bet he's got some great stories.
Yeah. Well, we love being out on the job site. And guys, we really appreciate you being here. We'll do it again tomorrow. We're going to try to be on after the next round. I know a lot of you guys love the next round show as well, but Clint, anything else you want to get into?
No, just, great conversation. Off season's moving along pretty well because there's just a lot to be excited about. This is that down period where the, Super Bowl just ended, NFL and college football, it's now over. But here pretty soon, a couple of weeks, we're going to be cranking up kind of, spring football and getting an idea of where this Alabama football team's at. You've got the basketball team doing extremely well, a lot of big games coming up. So just it's a blessing to be able to do this with you and with everybody else. I say with everybody else because just everybody loves hopping in the chat. I love it.
I think this is one of my favorite comments for you, Clint. He says, I love Clint's detail. Ask him what time it is and to tell you how to build a watch.
I've always been that way. You know what? Because I will admit I have ADHD. So me trying to stay down a lane and the problem is it's like stuff happens to you when you're younger and it kind of people don't realize that like something that someone says to you sometimes will completely shape your life.
Yeah, right.
It just sticks. And one of the things is when I first got into this, I was doing a bunch of radio spots and everything. And I was talking to somebody that ended up being my co-host on a radio show for a while. And he said, one of the things that we love about having you on is that we can ask you a question and you'll just take it down all these lanes and you'll kind of run with it and it makes their job easier. And so that was a lot of positive reinforcement early in my time doing this. The problem is I've stuck with it. I'm a talker. I just want to make sure I'm informing people as much as I can because sometimes I get done with answering something like, man, I could have said this and this too, and that would have been informative and helped people or whatever. And next thing you know, I rattle off. I'm a detailed oriented person when it comes to this stuff. And if it makes me ramble a little bit, kind of like I am now, just know I apologize, but I'm probably not changing.
No, I like it, man. I remember when you were on the ump, and I didn't really know you that well, but I remember catching you some and thinking, I really like you. You know, like I liked your style. And then, you know, when we were putting this channel together, you know, you were the first person I thought of. So I think that's a compliment, you know, and I think that's kind of what you know, what everybody's kind of saying on here. You know, it's what it's supposed to be. We're on here cutting up, you know, kind of getting into detail on stuff. Rocket Town loves it. You know, there's power in the details, Clint. Better than not having anything to say. You know, so
there are a couple of topics you can get me at that point too, though. You get in the right thing, and I ain't got nothing to say. I'm not gonna. I've always been one of those. I also don't like speaking on things I know nothing about.
Yeah. Well, you guys can check out Clint, covercrimson.com. I'll be on there as well, trying to contribute on the message board. But, you know, we appreciate you. We'll be back trying to line Coker up for an elephant in the room tonight, too. So hopefully we'll get that on there. We got Bama and Bourbon. We got The Process. We got some other shows coming up. And, you know, I'm sure EG will pop on. So we got a lot of things going on here, and we appreciate all of you guys. But it's going to be a fun night. We'll see what happens with Bama basketball. And Roll Tide, guys. Thanks for being here.